username and passcode and just kind of make one up for them and then tell them, hey, this is some alternative information you might check out. And a lot of people are doing that. We got a bunch of new features that are about to be added to PrisonPlanet.tv. You've already seen a lot of the new ones that have been added in the last month. But finish your point, Madison.
Actually, it was several points, if I may. But I remember back when I was a part of a meetup group, an Impeach Bush group, and then I stumbled onto Loose Change 9/11. That opened up a world for me. And some people in the neonate, when they're in their mother's womb, their parents have them listen to classical music. Well, I like to say that I was listening to the tick of the 60-minute stopwatch, which used to be actually a viable news source. And I just want to revisit some of the really positive feelings, like chasing Kissinger up the hill at Bilderberg. Alfred Abbas that you had on recently, he was just fantastic. And the goosebumps, the positive goosebumps that you talk about, not just the negative ones, what a force, I mean, we as listeners really love to hear that. And so I really need to get all my NPR listening friends here in Madison. I have a business with 45 employees, so I can somewhat sympathize with all of the challenges that you have, and I would love to be a partner in Austin North, as we sometimes call it, kind of a sister city.
Sure. I'm just, again, we've got a lot of big plans, a lot of things we'd like to do. The issue is we're just trying to get our basic operation up to the next level, and things sound like they're easy and quick to do, but complex things are complex by their very nature. But I appreciate your call. God bless you, my friend. I've got to just read this report before I go back to your calls. This is out of the West Australian News, thewest.com. It's up at Infowars.com. It's also the top story at the Drudge Report, drudgereport.com. Iran threatens warships to U.S. Iran raised the prospect on Tuesday of sending military ships close to the United States Atlantic coast in what would be a major escalation of tensions between the long-standing adversaries. And again, this is a provocation. But then you read why Iran's doing it. Like the arrogant powers that are present near our marine borders and have even tried to stage attacks on their ships, on U.S. ships, to blame it on Iran. Remember that came out with Cheney 2 years ago. Like the arrogant powers that are present near our marine borders, we will also have a powerful presence close to the American marine borders. The head of the Navy, Rear Admiral Habibullah Sairia said, I'm butchering that, according to the official Iranian news agency. Speaking at a ceremony marking the 31st anniversary of the start of the 1980-88 war with Iraq, he gave no details of when such a deployment could happen or the number of type of vessels to be used. They've got some pretty big destroyers and battleships. And obviously, the American people are starting to wake up, but not to this level. Very tribal, very, red, white, and blue. So you could wrap cyanide pills in it and people would eat them. The irony is going to be lost to the American people that there's U.S. warships and NATO stuff all around them, constantly boarding Iranian ships, constantly in their face. And so Iran's like, okay, we'll send warships over to you. No, that's terrible. Our media, our so-called media, whenever a government fires back, like when Libya was firing back at NATO aircraft, they were like, how dare they fire back because we bombed them. I mean, the news was actually, how dare they fire anti-aircraft into the sky. This is terrorism. This is aggressive. It's like a guy walks up in a restaurant, says, excuse me, breaks your nose. You get up and say, all right, let's fight. And you're like, I can't believe you're putting your fist up. Call the police. The cops get there and you're like, sir, I just walked over and broke his nose. And then he put his fist up. And the cops are like, that's terrorism. I agree. Let's take you to jail. So, look at this. Human skin embedded with spider silk can stop a bullet, Raw Stories reporting. That's in News of the Weird. Yeah, for more than 15 years, they've had spider cross goat creatures that produce body armor for special forces. That's semi-classified body armor, but it's amazing. The bullets just bounce off, reportedly. Reverse. Government motors won't track motorists who cancel OnStar. That's an announcement by OnStar. That's not true. I told you years ago. They've always tracked you. This goes back years. Incredible. It just came out again. I remember 2 years ago, TomTom got caught tracking people and selling it. And then they said they wouldn't do it anymore. In fact, call Dew in here, because Dew was bringing me TomTom news yesterday, going, look, they're back in the news, the TomTom GPS selling your data. And I said, but that's 2 years old. And I went and showed him. I said, it was new, though. They were back. And then I said, no, let's not go with that. Because I was thinking, well, we've already reported that. So what if the mainstream media is reporting it now? But the angle is, I just remembered it. Come on in, bro. I've got the angle on TomTom. It was a year and a half ago, Rob, for the Nightly News tonight. It was a year and a half ago. We can even show a nice camera shot of Dew in here. He's a great American. Helped us run the nighttime show. In fact, tonight we're going to have you as a guest on the show talking about how your lawsuit against Pittsburgh police. So, in fact, I want you to talk about that briefly since you're in here. But you were wanting to do TomTom tonight, yesterday, and I was like, to tie it into OnStar.
Right. And
I said, well, that's a year and a half, 2 years old. But now I understand the angle to show people. TomTom got caught a year and a half ago or 2 years ago doing that, selling the data. You can pull that up. Then they apologized and said they'd stop, and then it's back in the news yesterday and today that they're doing it again.
Right.
Now, why do we do that? We illustrate this playing possum, that first they get caught, then they say they're not, then it turns out they are. And we'll show that that's what's going on with OnStar as well. Because OnStar has now reversed themselves and said, we're not going to do this now.
Yeah.
They've always been doing it.
Right. I think it's built into their technology. Otherwise, they wouldn't give that technology to the public. I think that's just built in. Seems like every little system they build has a little spy function in it, no matter what. It's like the cell phones.
Well, no, by law, they listen to you. And I told people 15, 16 years ago, I said, the Federal Telecommunications Act says by law they got to be able to turn it on remotely and listen to you. And people are like, oh, shut up. And then a decade later, it's like, your phone's listening to you. It's good. Keeps you safe from Al-Qaeda.
Yeah, it's called roving bug, if you want to search that out there. Roving bug. And the police in New York were doing it to track mobsters.
Yeah, right. These people not laundering the money through them. Now, listen, briefly, because tonight I'm going to have you in as a guest. You are, with Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers, suing. Dew is suing the Pittsburgh police. We're not litigious here. I had to defend Dew in court until they dropped the charges. I had to defend Aaron at great expense for being arrested for asking a question of Karl Rove. That went on. That was like $4,000. But they dropped the stuff on Dew. We have the whole footage. He's outside the court. Them arresting people at a university. You're not allowed to even eat outside at night. They come up the hill to Dew where he's videotaping. Let the other mainstream media go. Yeah. Arrest Dew. You were with Luke. They were stripping people down naked. Had bags over people's heads. Sat you out in the rain all night. And it was near freezing. And so you are suing him. And it was actually a pretty positive article in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and other places because journalists like to stick together. That's one of the few areas you still see some common decency occasionally in the mainstream corporate horror media. But briefly, tell folks about your lawsuit.
Well, we're filing a lawsuit. Myself, I'm filing a lawsuit. Stuart Rhodes is my attorney. And, basically for the fact that they detained me, pushed me around. I was in handcuffs for 12 hours. I was kept outside in the rain.
But you do have long hair. That was I guess that's the excuse. Fur coat.
Yeah, well, not really. Maybe kept my ears warm. But
Chewbacca.
I tell you what, probably the scariest part was when they had put the plastic cuffs on me. I was kneeling down, and I was looking over, and they were just walking by to these kids and spraying mace in their face. And these kids were on the ground, hands behind their back, and they're just spraying each one in the face, walking up. Kids weren't doing, and a lot of these were little college kids.
And you described like the cop commander with the military, and you were at this base, and they were just looked like psychopaths running around.
Yeah, these guys, they were wearing shirt on their uniforms, and they had their helmets and their pads. And,
you got footage of like women on bikes. They'd run over with full power and grunt, and like hit them with a billy club. You can kill somebody like that.
That actually, Burma shot that.
I mean, you can kill people with your bare hands easy.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, the girl's laying down, the cop's right on top of her, and I think Burmis is yelling, just remember she's a girl, guys, come on, and she wasn't doing anything. She was just trying to get out of the way. That's what everybody
But, I mean, that is total tyranny to have they couldn't find anybody. They said nobody on the streets day or night. They would just randomly go attack kids with footballs in their front yards. There are old ladies coming out of stores with bags. They would release police dogs on them. I mean, it was a psycho police riot. And
this was when I got arrested. It was after the G20 was over. It had been over for about, the whole day.
Exactly, but they would just ride around in neighborhoods saying no one's allowed on the streets.
Right.
And then it was after, and all the cops were there and wanted to bust some heads, so they went to the university.
Yeah.
And we've got the footage. It wasn't even protesters, just people outside at like 9 at night eating hamburgers. And here come cops. They kettle everybody, and then and women are on bikes going, and the cops literally, the cowardice of a guy wanting to run up to a woman and crack a billy club over their head.
Yeah, no.
And then women falling off crying, and the cops are having like weird satanic orgasms.
Well, and now you got the cops doing that in New York. I've been watching that video of surrounding women with these orange nets and then spraying them in the face with mace. And these are women. They're not. Well,
that's like
it's ridiculous.
That was like the first thing where the Delta Force staged the whole event. That was even in the mainstream news at the time. 1999, Seattle. They went into neighborhoods and would like pull families over in cars and just pepper spray them. It's on video. It's in my film, Police State 2: The Takeover. I mean, again, they're trying to hire cops now who want to beat you and your wife.
And why don't the cops realize that they're next on the list? Once they do the bidding, they're going to get turned on by the next group of psychopaths that come along. And they need to realize, and they need to wake up, and they need to start, siding with the protesters, because we're all in this together.
Yeah, but in your case, you were at the university.
Oh, yeah. And I was covering the event. I was not protesting. I've got plenty of footage. I am not saying a word other than, people are asking me who I worked for and whatnot. And
you're up on a hill. You're out of it all.
Oh, yeah. Well, by that time, I'd gone up the hill. But I was covering, there was some
stuff. And they march
up
to you.
Oh, yeah. They had cordoned off the area. And then somebody released on the internet of the scanners. And they're calling out military maneuvers. They're blocking people in. They're like, hold right here till we get the guys up on top of the hill.
Yeah, they're like, now disperse. They won't let you leave.
Exactly.
Because they're like, yeah, we're going to beat some hippies. Oh, why don't you guys go join a gym? Go join some martial arts thing and go fight men if you're so tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I just running up to women on bicycles and grunting with hatred. You're going to start, when you kill people's family members and hurt them, you're going to have people, there's justice in this universe. I mean, I got to tell you, folks, I'm not a tough guy, and repeatedly I got in fistfights and, would be in court and stuff with some guy, in a coma for 6 weeks and had to go through all this crap. And so I know what fists and clubs can do to people. And these guys are hitting people with clubs, full power in the head. I mean, you kill people that way.
They hit Luke that night. He was trying to leave, and they started hitting him, and that's how he ended up getting into the spot where I was. And I shot a brief interview with him right before I got detained, arrested. I don't know what to call it because they never charged me with anything that night. So it was just, I'm at a loss to still how they could get away with that with all those people out there after the G20. It wasn't even anywhere near that location where the G20 was. And it really changed my attitudes on police. And it's a night that changed my life because I had to sit up all night. They wouldn't let you fall asleep. They brought us outside. It was cold and rainy.
And they had people with bags on their heads.
Oh, yeah. They brought one guy in. They had 4 guys on him, and he was literally hyperventilating as they brought him in. I mean, he sounded very stressed out. A skinny little dude. Like, I could have probably picked the guy up with one hand. And they're dragging him in. They have a bag over his head. They put him in a cell, and I'm not sure if he was naked or whatnot after that, but they put a camera on him, and they had a cop right outside the door watching him the whole time. Like, this guy was he was nothing but a
well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They were there protecting the banker lords. Sure. Remember the footage of guys in uniforms grabbing peaceful protesters and snatching and grabbing?
Yeah.
And then we got contacted by the G20, and they said, that is not U.S. Army. That is our personnel. Yeah, to correct us that it wasn't Army. So they had private people kidnapping folks. Dude, we'll talk more about it tonight. Good job.
Right. See you tonight at 7.
Thank you, buddy boy. He lived in Switzerland for a while. The guy would go, hello, buddy boy. So that's his name around here is Buddy Boy. Let me bring up the Comrex system here. Let's go to Scott in Washington who disagrees. Go ahead, Scotty.
Yeah. What I wanted to bring up this point, and I also have a suggestion actually for Jesse, was if he was suggesting that Ron Paul should quit right now during these primaries.
No, he should do it after. Yeah, I brought that up. Ventura agreed with me. Quit after.
Yeah, because one problem is, and we know he's already having a problem getting time in these debates. The other thing that I would correct him in is that The Libertarian, when he says that they have ballot access in all 50 states, that's not guaranteed. They claimed the last time that they had ballot access in 48 states, and they only ended up being on the ballot in 41 states. Down there in your own home state, down there in Texas, this was when Bob Barr, and I am no fan of him, tried to sue to get on that ballot access down there. They threw that case out of there, and McCain and Obama should not have even have been on the ballot.